Hi everyone, this is Lara Jade of Lara Jade Photography, and I've collaborated with Greater Than Gatsby to bring you the new Editorial retouch set. The purpose of this video is to show you how the Studio Editorial retouch set works and give you an idea of how I approach color within my own work. I chose this image because I feel it will show you how best to work with shots within the studio. Remember, to get the best results from this set, you should experiment as much as possible to find a color workflow that works best for you. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and approach color. Now you'll find within the action set themselves that artistic tones are what we're going to use to approach the color. And looking through, we have a variety of different actions here, which will all give a different approach and the toning and the colors of the image. Now going through earlier, I decided that I find Edelweiss was very good for this kind of image, delicate, azure, and this is because they approach more of a blue tone within their images. Now if you're new to the set, the best way to get familiar with these actions is to experiment with them and find out which ones you like best. So I'm going to go ahead first and click on Edelweiss. And you'll see that's immediately gave us a nice kind of cold tone to the image. And that's what I was looking for when I shot this image. I wanted that kind of delicate, ethereal look to the image. And this approaches it in the best way by adding the blue tones to kind of come across in that ethereal way. So I'm going to go and take that down to maybe around 60%. And this is the best way to work with these sets, is to add them, experiment, and change the opacity. So pretty straightforward, nothing too special here. But what I find is the more I experiment, the more I start to realize what each of them do. That adds more creamy tones to the shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to see what Marina does here. Marina adds more of like a sea blue to the image. Maybe I'll give it 10% of that. And then I go ahead and click iridescent. Or perhaps that's a little too desaturated in the tones there. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And I go ahead and perhaps do ombre. It's a little more purple. But it also brings out some nice tones within the background. I'm going to go ahead and click that. What I also like to do is throw my actions once I've worked on it into a folder by dragging down those sets, selecting them, dragging them down, and add them into a group so that I can see how the whole set approaches the color there. And once I have my group there, I'm going to go ahead and name it color toning. I like to do this so I can organize the color that I'm approaching. Certain images require different toning, certain images require, certain color tone of blue, but then maybe I go ahead and experiment with actions that control more of the whites and take that opacity down. And I also am known to use a lot of masks. So perhaps I want to approach the hair and use an action specifically for that. So perhaps I would create a folder just for the overall color toning, and then perhaps I go ahead and add another folder for the skin, mask that out specifically for the background, because having a really organized workflow really helps when you're working with clients or for your own sanity, basically. To be able to go back and go and edit is so important. It saves so much time. So I highly recommend when you're doing any workflow to have it organized all within here as well. Once I'm happy with the color of my image and the overall look, I want to go ahead and finalize my image with a level of grain. Now you can skip this step, but it's a preference in my own workflow that I enjoy adding to add texture back to the image. Now you've got the option at the bottom of the set for noise and film grain. You've got light, medium, and heavy grain. Now I would approach every image with a light grain. For black and whites, perhaps the heavy grain would work best for something like a film noir because it's more reminiscent to film. The medium grain, perhaps images that are a little softer shot on a lower ISO, but I always like to go ahead and add a light grain there. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go into my image. So you can see what that's done there. It's just added that slight level of grain to finalize my image. This works really well on beauty images, portrait images to kind of bring texture back after you've retouched the skin. And it's just something I like to finalize my images with. So as I said, feel free to skip this step if you don't want to add it, but it is a finalization for me and what I enjoy adding to images before uploading them to the web or to send to clients as well. Okay, so before I show you one more tip, I'm going to go ahead and show you the before and after. So this is before. It's more of a tungsten setting due to the light I was working with, a continuous light, and I wanted to achieve more of an ethereal color. So we've gone ahead and added those 3 different actions, Marina, Delicate, and Edelweiss, which have all been changed with the opacity to the variable levels to what I'm looking for. So you'll see before, after. It's kind of more of what I was imagining when I shot this image, more ethereal, more delicate, to go along with the kind of styling and the hair and makeup too. So one more tip before we finish this video is how to edit a batch of images. Now I get asked this question so many times on workshops and seminars and in emails. How do I edit a series of images together? So it's really simple. I think a lot of people overlook this within Photoshop. So all we're going to do here is float these windows in window, arrange, float all windows. You imagine having a series of images opened within Photoshop after you've worked on the skin and you're just approaching color. And all I'm going to do is drag over the color toning folder and the light grain over to the other image. Now this is why it's so important to build yourself an organized workflow, because it really helps when you're batch editing later on. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that color toning from the image on the right over to my image on the left, and then I'm going to go ahead and go back to this image and drag my light grain over to that. Now, not every image is going to work if you've shot at different times of the day, if it's an editorial, if it's a portrait session, if you've got backlight, if you've got, diffuse light, if you've got direct light. But it is a good way to approach the color so that you can then go working on image number 2 and then start doing more actions to kind of suit that particular image as well. So I hope you found that useful. I know I've really enjoyed showing you guys how to approach color, and hopefully it's answered a lot of questions you guys may have when it comes to looking at my own work as well. If you would like to purchase the Studio Editorial set or any of the other editorial retouch sets, go to www.greaterthangatsby.com, or if you would like more information about my work, go to www.larajade.com. Thank you.